Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to NickTalks. Thank you for watching. Hope everyone is doing very well, making some money, making stuff happen. There it is. So, jump right into things. This is the now second podcast format video. Pretty excited about the podcast form. I'm much more able to get through a longer list of things in greater depth, and I'll be able to cut it up later for easier consumption. Today I'm also going to be testing out a new format as well, or more like an addition to the format, where we're going to go through the main points that I have for the video, and at the end we're going to do a little life hack segment. So basically just I think I want to include this going forward. We'll see how it goes, see how I feel about it, but I like the idea of just talking about things that I use daily that have helped me out, and I think it'll help me just take note of things that I'm doing that are working and working well enough for me to tell others about. And by telling others, I'll be able to document the process, for one, so I can go back and look at everything that I did, and two, just clarify my thinking about things that I'm doing that are helping out. And then I think I have a bonus, just in case we have time. I have another thing that I want to talk about at the very end. Okay, so we'll jump into our first topic here, which is dreaming bigger. Kind of talking about the scalability of dreams and goals, and pushing the scope of your mind to greater lengths than you normally would or could, just at least for the sake of creative practice, and also maybe finding something you didn't know you wanted. So I've noticed that when I have worked on projects before, or I have several projects running right now, and I'll have the initial idea, and the scope will kind of adjust itself accordingly. The scale will be what I think it is. So like right now, one of the things I'm working on is a story for a book, and when I initially came up with the idea, it just kind of came to me, and I thought, a short animated series or a graphic novel. And then I was like, well, what if I push it a little bit bigger? And then I think maybe I could do a novel out of it and expand it. And then at least if I create based on a novel, I'll have enough source material that if I decide to do a graphic novel or a animated series, then I can put more into it and build the world out more fully. And then I was talking to someone about my idea and what I plan on doing with it, and they were saying, what if you scaled it even bigger and thought of certain universes that exist, book series like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, or cinematic universes, right? And think on that scale. That seems like something that you could be able to do. Why don't you think about it like that instead? And at first I was like, no, I don't think so. I like this little self-contained bubble that I have of this idea, and I think it's just going to fit nicely inside there. But then I thought about it more fully and realized that my argument for scaling it above a show still fits in for scaling it greater. If I write a 3-book series, all that information can port more fully into something else if I decide to go that route. And then if I wanted to take it even further into like a 5 to 7 book series, then that's even more information. So basically, I can create much greater amount, and if I decide not to use it, at least I have the world already built. So and then that kind of convinced me, okay, I think I want to actually write for at least 3 books to start, with ideas for at least a 4th and a 5th, and maybe onwards. So in short, my main principle here is don't be afraid to think and dream bigger, right? Don't hold yourself short just because you don't think it's possible. You think it's kind of unattainable, right? It's like having a dream to go to the moon. What does that even mean? It seems like a dream too big to accomplish. But I'd say push yourself to scale that idea, even just for fun, just to kind of live in that world that you're trying to create, or that business plan that you're trying to move forward or the market that you're trying to break into, just think bigger. Just think bigger just for the sake of thinking bigger. And then what I've noticed is as I do that, I find more often than not that I would like it to be bigger anyways, and if I stop short, at least I had a big goal and I decided that it's not worth it anymore rather than starting with a small one and then capping myself there. Whereas say I create a goal that's here and I come up and I reach it and then I stop there because I didn't have anything forward. Now, of course, I'm sure that as you progress through a project, your ceiling is going to raise much higher than you thought it would. But at least starting off with a big dream, I think, increases the room to grow, right? And then if you stop growing because you don't want to give it that time or effort anymore, at least, you still could have created more than you originally would just because you thought a little bit bigger. So, just opening up your mind to more possibility is kind of the principle there. And don't hold yourself short. And this has been able to apply across every dimension of creative space that I'm kind of operating in, right? The way that I think about things. I won't say that it's like, revolutionized my life or at all or anything, but, I've always kind of been a big dreamer, but I have had such a somewhat of a hard time, like taking that dreaming big capability and putting it into ideas that I'm actually working on. If I'm thinking just creatively in my mind about something that I may never work on, it's very easy to scale it big. Like I have ideas for extensions of universes that exist right now, and I'm able to think very clearly about where I could push that to because I'm not making it. I'm not experiencing the pitfalls of actual creation, right? So, man, there was something else that I was going to say about that, but it's just allowed me a little bit more freedom to think, giving myself permission to dream bigger. And that kind of also verges into what we talked about in the last video about embracing the unknown rather than clinging to the known. Right, so the known would be what I've already created before and what I've seen created before. I've seen people do short stories. I've seen it done many times. Very few times have I seen something that is fully fleshed out and big, like, say, the Marvel universe or any comic book universe or Star Trek or like Harry Potter, anything like that has a fully fleshed out universe that spans years and multiple areas in space and time, right? So embracing the unknown is pushing your mind to the things that haven't been done yet so that you can truly create and innovate in a space that hasn't seen what you have to offer. And so embracing that unknown, chasing down the bigger dream is rushing into the place where you can fill an unfilled void. Right, so instead of me doing the same thing that everyone else has done but slightly different, I'm now pushing forwards the bounds so that I will be creating something entirely new that has never been seen before, which kind of creates its own vacuum or niche market, this space where only you are existing at the moment. And you never know what that could lead to. I don't know how many innovations in the past turned into big dreams that now revolutionize the space. Thinking about Apple, right? The kind of things that Apple has done. I'm not a, huge Apple fanboy, but I would say that the innovation is off the charts and they definitely have revolutionized the way that technology is viewed and used and marketed. And that wouldn't be able to be accomplished if someone didn't sit down and say, okay, I want to think about how to make this enormous company. I want to think about how to scale this up to the biggest company on the planet. Right? So that kind of freedom just allows for so much more creative capability. So you don't have to hold yourself short. Where would the creators of Apple be if they didn't give themselves permission to dream a little bit bigger, a little ahead of what they were doing, right? So that's kind of my main first point is just take your dream, sit on the couch, look at a blank wall, and picture it even bigger. And just kind of stretch out the tendrils of your imagination to touch things or push things in a direction that maybe you wouldn't have gone before. Even if it's just to get used to using your mind at a larger level, because if you're not used to imagining things that fully, then you won't be in practice of it. And I think that the more you practice that, the more you can see big opportunities. The more you practice seeing the big picture and creating the big picture, the more you can see it in your own life and, take action accordingly. And moving on to the second point, kind of staying in the same vein of creation and dreams and goals, is how to bring these big dreams that we've just created to life, and how to make them real, and how to make a process that is going to actually capture that and create that instead of it just existing up here, right? So I've also, quick break, topic change. I don't know how I didn't think of this before, but basically my office here has two desks jutting up against each other. And every time I shift on this desk, it always shakes the camera. But I've just put the mount on the other desk, so now when I move, very little interference. Making upgrades, people. That's what I'm talking about. So the second point is, instead of just dreaming and creating an idea and pushing that idea, inflating that idea to bigger and better things, how to take that from there to here. And that is build an actionable blueprint, step-by-step process of how to get there, right? So this kind of comes from a conversation that I had with my partner the other day, where we were talking about basically our young adulthood and how we moved through and how we organized ourselves. And she has a much more forwards to backwards thinking, and I have much more backwards to forwards. So like I use my past as a guide to who I am and where I want to go and why, and she imagines where she wants to go and builds back, reverse engineers that process. And I thought about it, and it kind of makes sense. I haven't really brought up my high school experience, I don't think, a whole lot, but it's probably something that I'll touch on often in the future, at least, going forward for the next short while until I outlive that experience. But I would say that the last 2 years of my high school, we're kind of getting off topic here, but we'll come back. The last 2 years of my high school experience, I created something. I was able to achieve things that I had never seen before, just because I had shifted my mindset in a very specific and, in my opinion, special way that I haven't seen often duplicated. And I'm always trying to revisit the high times of my life to take that accidental success, that accidental achievement, and turn it into a process and something I can use now, so I can recreate that. All of the moments of height in my life where I was creating things that were amazing, or doing things that were amazing, or forging awesome relationships and being more connected. A lot of the success that I've had has been at least partially accidental. I just so happened to be working out and learning on the side and pursuing relationships, and it just kind of all coalesced into one magical experience and persona. Whereas if I can take those lessons and really dive deep into the inner workings of how that happened, I can change who I am now, right? So that conversation kind of started to get the gears rolling, and me thinking about, like, okay, actually, if I think back to that time, the reverse engineer process makes a lot of sense. So basically what happened was, I was not very popular. I was not, I had a close circle of friends. I wasn't very fit. I wasn't known at all in the social hierarchy of my small town / school system. And I wanted to change that. So I imagined a character that would have those things, that would be invited to parties, that would be known, that would have the chance to communicate with any person, man, woman, whatever, pursue any relationship. I created this persona. I figured out how that person would act, and then I figured out where I was in comparison and created a process that I worked on every day to get to that point. And inevitably, I reached it, obviously, right? So it made me realize that this whole reverse engineering process is actually extremely valuable. And when you apply that framework to the dream or knowledge space, the goal space, the what is out there that I want and I don't have, when you apply that framework, it, I think, is a very valuable lens to help you reach it, right? Now, the most valuable, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ironed out my process enough to say that, like, this is what you should do every time. But I would say that it seems to be a pretty fail-proof method, and definitely the energy expenditure decreases. You're spinning your wheels less if you reverse engineer, and this, digging deeper into it, reverse engineer to create one by one, what do you do to get there, right? What is that person that is running a multi-million-dollar company or creating numerous full-length novels or series of books, right? What is that person doing on a day-to-day, like on a personal level and on a work level, right? What am I thinking every day, and also what am I doing with my hands every single day? And just, we'll apply it to like life improvement in business. So I don't know if I've touched on it before last video, but I know in the last video I went over my framework of how I want to get to at least the entry level success, like how to break into the financial freedom space. And that is, just to quickly recap, it's first purchasing a truck, right? So that now I have a space for storing things, hauling things, towing capability for pulling a boat, hopefully in the future, and a trailer with whatever else on it, getting the truck, and then investing in a multifamily home, duplex, house hacking, so living one side, renting the other, covering mortgage, saving money, reducing living expenses and overall expenditure month to month, so that I can increase my savings rate, right? And then buying a boat sometime in this process, right? And then purchasing a second property, probably single family home, and refabbing the boat for living capabilities, rehabbing the second property, and then once everything is set and going and the boat is ready, put everything that we don't need in storage, and then move out of the duplex, rent now the second side, so we have 2 units running, eventually rent the single family home, so now we have 3 up and running units that are cash flowing every month, and live on the boat for 1 to 3 years to just cash flow and have experiences while we're still young, and hopefully document that process as well. And I think that would make for some pretty interesting content, just basically a travel vlog at that point while we're Uber house hacking, right? So that's the roadmap that I've created. So I had goals, things that I wanted to do. I want to break into the real estate market. Big picture goal, I want to reach financial freedom. Like many of us, obviously, we want to be in a place where we're not paying or getting paid by the man. We're not trading our hours for somebody else's dime. We're working for ourselves. That's, I think, what a lot of us want, especially nowadays. And if you're watching this, hopefully that's the kind of thing that you're striving for as well. But taking that dream of financial freedom and boiling it down into what can I do? And so for me, it was things that make sense. It's investing in things that pay me back. And so I started looking into different avenues for that: stock market, cryptocurrency, real estate. Stock market, I don't fully understand how it works in a way that I can take money that I have now and get returns on it. I think maybe there's something in the future that I'd like to do with that, but based on what I've seen of the stock market, it seems like something that I don't really want to operate in until I fully understand. So then, cryptocurrency, pretty volatile market. There's a lot of new things going on there that requires a lot of information and education that I also don't have. I think it's much more intriguing to me to pursue that, but just not something that I see boots on the ground, hit the ground running, get it moving capability. I don't see crypto as that for me personally. And then I think, okay, other assets that I can use, real estate, that makes sense to me, right? I've worked on houses in the past. I've done construction work. I've done remodeling work, both at home and for other people for money. I've been a private contractor shortly, but private contracting nonetheless. And I've done home jobs, so I know a little bit about getting homes rent ready, how to do repairs on a budget. I want to own a home. I don't want to keep paying rent because I'm basically just dumping money down the toilet. I don't get anything back. So now I have two interests that coalesce. They are adding to each other. They're converging into one single thing. So housing market made the most sense to me. Okay, so we had the dream of financial freedom. We traced it back to an actionable step. It is housing market. So I want to break into the housing market. What does that mean? I'm ranting a little at you, but I'll dial it back a little bit. Just kind of want to breeze through this. What does that mean? Okay, I want to reduce my living expenses and create cash flow. So how do I do that at the same time? Because if I buy single family and I live in it, I can't rent it, so I'm not making any money, and then I just have another expense, basically the same as rent, right? So now, because of my cost of entry, I want to lower that, and so we can get into duplex, where immediately I get cash flow off of it that will cover my living expenses. So that reduces a lot of my expenses to zero. So even if I'm not positively cash flowing out of that, I'm still reducing or increasing my saving rate by reducing my month-to-month expenditure. So made a lot of sense to me. And then the obvious next step is scoop up more property, right? So this is, just to sum up, this is kind of what I mean by creating a blueprint, so I have step by step. What do I want to do? What do I have? I have a big thing on my wall right here so I can see it every single day. What's the path? I basically have every single box of what I want and a line that traces all of them together. So I can look and I can basically Google Maps my way to how I want to get to success. Because you can get there any number of ways. I can become a streamer, I can become a YouTuber, I can become an actor or a voice actor or a singer or a construction worker and save all my money, or I can own a restaurant. There's a billion different ways to make money. So it's all about what do I like, what do I want to work on, what do I want to operate within in terms of space, and creating a path to get there. And this, I saw an analogy about the watermelon recently, where a lot of people, you sit down and you got a big watermelon in front of you, and it's like, how am I going to eat this thing? So you got to, first step, cut it up into small pieces, because that's the only way you're going to start getting into it. Because if you're just looking at this watermelon and you do nothing with it, it's going to sit there, and how are you going to get to the end of it? Right? You just look at it, and it's intimidating. It clears out all this creativity because you're so stressed and worried about getting to the end result of the watermelon being gone that you can't think of how to get there in the first place. So it's just taking a breath, step back. What are steps that I can take today to get there? So, you create this big dream of millionaire, billionaire, company owner, movie producer, whatever. And then you boil it down to intermittent milestone goals and steps in between, right? So for me, financial freedom, I have the boat, I have the house, I have the duplex, I have a truck, tracing it all back. And then how do I get there? So what are my steps to get to truck? And then what are my steps to get from truck to duplex? And then my steps to get from duplex to a second property. And then my steps to being, fully living on, a boat off land with just cash flow coming in. So creating the steps, the big steps, and the steps in between, and just making it make sense. If I can take it, you can take any huge goal, and if you can boil it down to a few big steps, then you're halfway there. And then you can boil that down to a few steps in between. Then now you have a plan. Now you have a piece of paper that you can look at and go, this is how I'm going to do it. You've got a business plan for your life, and that it changes the dynamic of this massive watermelon that you have to eat to just a slice. I'll just eat the slice, eat the first slice, right? Get through the first slice, get to the second slice. You just keep moving along by that, and then next thing you know, you're going to be there. At least that's how I see it, anyways. Obviously, I'm not Mr. Multimillionaire that's buying up companies right now, but I'm doing what a guy can do at this stage, at where the level I am is at. And I think that that is going to be instrumental. It's already been instrumental in making things happen in an organized way towards a goal. Because I've always been able to make things happen by doing things and accomplishing things on a small level that lead to a big increase. But it's never organized. It's never been a process that I can see front to back and go through and iron out and really guide me to where I want to go. So now I had, like before, so if we can trace back just the steps that we've accomplished before, there was, I need a desk for my home office, right? And then I got the desk, right? And then it was, okay, my computer's old and I can't do much with it, so I can't really upload and download videos because I want to break into the video space or the content creation space. So now I need a new computer, okay? And as I'm looking at new computers, it's like, okay, also this desk is a little small. It's a little small, and I'm somebody that likes to do projects on the side and have a workspace. And I live in an apartment, so I don't have a garage or anything, right? So it's like, okay, I need a workbench. So then my next two goals were workbench to expand my desk area and move dirty projects to a dirtier area, someplace that I'm okay with, getting dirt and grime and mud and burn marks and bad smells in, and then a place that I like to keep clean for my direct knowledge work. And so we got there. We found a computer, bought the computer, right? That's what I'm uploading on now, HP Pavilion, I've talked about in the past. And we built the desk, very cheap, out of the way. And I've got you can see all the stuff that I got sprawled out over there that is no longer taking up room on my desk that I work at, right? So those were the processes, and now, we move on to, as you get further along, both fortunately and unfortunately, the goals get bigger. So now next step is a truck, right? And saving enough for the down payment on a duplex. Hopefully we can do some creative financing and we don't have to have a whole lot there, but first step is for sure a truck. It's gonna be a lot harder to haul things if I gotta rent Home Depot trucks every single time and moving from place to place, right? And as I mentioned probably many times in the past, I'm a big scavenger guy. How many times could I have seen something nice on the side of the road that was brand new and just waiting to get thrown away, and I could have put it in the back of a truck, but I only had a car. That limits my capabilities so much. And then towing capability as well. So next is a truck, get the truck, then it's the house, right? So hopefully you see what I'm saying here about a blueprint to where I'm going. And as you go through, you can check off these boxes, right? I can cross off. So we had now, and then there's moped up there as well somewhere, and we got her a moped. So now we have two vehicles to get us, more mobile. And as you go through, you can see, like, man, I thought that $2,000 moped or just over $1,000 moped was going to be a big deal to get. And then you get it, and you're like, oh, I guess it's on to the next thing. And then it's like, man, I can't do much because I don't have a computer. And then you get the computer, and it's like, you can see this, chutes and ladders or game board of you progressing through the spaces. Now you have this, and then you move to the next one. Now wait till you get this, and you move to the next one. So that's something that I find very encouraging to continue growth is I see the progress. It's a way of, like, when you create a blueprint, you can follow it step by step, not only for guidance, but also for encouragement by seeing all the things that you've already completed, everything that you've already crossed off your list and got or purchased or made happen, right? So it's something that I think is instrumental. And boiling it down even further is something that I've heard about in a lot of different places, especially in the getting things done space now that I'm kind of existing there a little bit, is too small to fail, right? So that's when you create goals that are so tiny, 5-minute tasks, and you can't not complete it because it's so easy. And then, if you complete all these 5-minute tasks, then eventually you've created enough to where you've maintained progress to get to your big goal, right? So just to recap that whole main point there, I feel like it was kind of a bit of a tirade, but I feel like it was whatever. Basically, to cap it all off, you dream big, you give yourself permission to create a giant goal, something that seems impossible. And then you take a step back, you take a deep breath, you maybe take a break from it for a couple of days, and you think about the logical steps, things that I'm going to need to get there, right? And then you create an order for that. So you organize what comes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, to lead me to that point. Does it make sense for me to buy the truck after the house? No, because I'm going to need the truck to haul stuff and get stuff for the house anyways. So ordering it in a way that makes logical sense, at least to you, and hopefully if it makes enough sense to you, you can present it to someone else, and then they can kind of, maybe put this here, put that there, whatever. And then, so you have your big goal, you have your milestone progress goals of things that will help you reach that. And then you boil those down even smaller into small tasks, into the things that you need to do in between the goals. And then you can even boil those down even smaller to create just 5-minute tasks to get you to where you want to go. And so basically you've created a baby step by baby step program on how you are going to reach your big goal. And then you just follow it. You stick to the plan. You get lost, you have a downtime, you start getting a little depressed or burnt out, you take a break, you look back, you see where you're going. You see where you are, you see where you've been, and it encourages you to keep moving because now you have a process. You're not just fumbling around in the dark trying to find the light switch. You know exactly where you need to walk to get to the light switch and then progress through the room, right? So that's something that I found to be just extremely helpful. So when I get low and I get uncreative and uninspired, I can just look back at this big old thing on my wall and say, that's where I'm going. Right. Now I remember where I'm going. I see what I've already done. I see where I've been. I see where I am, and I see where I'm going. And I see all the steps to get me there. Right. So just something that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a better way, but it seems pretty foolproof to me, and I feel like I hear about it enough that others would agree on this process. But that's something that has worked for me, and maybe you can implement the same thing. So moving on, we're kind of verging away from goals and dreams and day-to-day processes, and I want to talk a brief bit about dopamine, right? So kind of just the dichotomy between good versus bad dopamine. Now, that's not really neurochemically correct terminology, but it helps me boil it down in a way that makes sense. So there was a video that I was going to make a while ago about diversification of knowledge base that I didn't actually post, but I'll touch on it briefly now. So basically the format for that video was going to be diversify your knowledge base so that you're kind of a jack of all trades and you can exist in different spaces easier by taking lessons from here and putting it over there and using it all across and being a well-rounded individual. And I've kind of come to this conclusion because I in my free time I like to learn about things that are actually going to change my life and things that I can use. And I've been doing a lot of research in like the health and fitness space, since I was very, very young. And so I've kind of verged into neurochemistry and how that affects your day-to-day life and how you can leverage that to not only notice negative and positive changes, but manipulate the changes so that you can, make better progress. And obviously one of the buzzwords these days is dopamine. And that's something that people are talking about, dopamine hits and dopamine detox. And there's lots of lectures and podcasts and things just on this single neuromodulator because it has such a big impact on everything you do and your day-to-day experience as well. Not only your motivation and drive, but your experience of that as well, and your time tracking, how you see things, right? Your overall quality of life is basically dominated by dopamine. And just to kind of cap off this whole diversification of knowledge subset so we can get right into the dopamine, is there was a period of time in the last month or two where I was just consistently low and my motivation was low and I noticed more negative thought patterns. And having a diversified knowledge set, I can look and see, chemically, what behaviors have I been doing to change the chemistry in my mind and my body that could be leading to this, right? I'm seeing repetitive negative thought patterns. What do we know about negative repetitive thought patterns based on the little bit that I've learned about psychology and behavioral psychology is negative thought patterns are the essence of a depression. So if you know about a depressive period, I'm feeling depressed. Okay, dial that back. What does that mean? I'm having negative reoccurring thoughts that are dominating my mental space. Okay, and then what can be causing negative reoccurring thoughts? And that's, poor structure in your life. It's overindulgence in dopamine rich activities, short-term gratification, easy wins. It's lack of organization. It's lack of clarity. It's just not lack of effort and energy, and you're not putting or pushing hard enough to be inspired and to earn your own respect. And so just by having I'm not an expert I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't know all the parts of the brain. I don't know all the chemicals of the brain. I don't know all the hormones in the body, but just based on what I do know, what I've learned just from YouTube and the internet is a functional tool for diagnosing where I am in life and saying, not only how did I get here, but how do I get out of here? How do I change this depressive state to a positive one? Okay, if I can boil it down to, okay, I see that I've been indulging in quick releases of dopamine rather than long sustained dopaminergic releases, then I can see, okay, now I'm addicted to this fast lifestyle. I'm addicted loosely. I'm not like compulsive, but I can see the big picture of what is really going on. And this kind of comes back to documenting success in the past, is I can now take that framework and apply it to the past situations. What was I doing then that led to such a positive increase in chemistry and productivity and mindset and growth and whatever, right? So once you can kind of expand your horizons a little bit, it allows you to, well, I guess we're just going to go ahead and create a topic here about diversification of knowledge, but it allows you to kind of document how you're getting different places and ironing out what works, what doesn't, what do I want to do, what do I not want to do. Is waking up late really costing me stuff later in the day because now I'm less energy and whatever, less focused, right? So that learning about these kind of things has really helped me get rid of some nasty stuff, right? It's able to identify poor behaviors because of what I know about psychology and neurochemistry and hormone balances just for a couple hours a week research, right? And so verging off of that, getting back into the topic of good dopamine versus bad dopamine, I, again, just was still kind of low. I started trending more upwards, having a better progression into what I wanted to get done and stuff like that, but I still didn't feel right. And I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be more enlightened, and how I have been in the past and many times in my life. And so I ironed out a new workout plan, and I've been having some sleep apnea issues after I passed a certain weight, and so I needed to start running because I wasn't doing any cardio, so I needed to improve cardiovascular endurance. So I created a workout plan where I run this many days a week, and the first day I implemented the plan. I go to the gym, I come home, I do a hard ab workout, and then I go for a run. Not a long run, but it was difficult because I haven't ran in a long time. And so after the run, it was very difficult. It was very difficult, right? I mean, I wasn't like gonna throw up or anything, but I was huffing and puffing pretty good, right? After the run, when I came back, after all this energy, I sat on the couch, and it was just like this, I could feel this overwhelming release of dopamine in my system, right? And a different kind. When they talk about cold exposure and heat exposure, they talk about how it's a sustained release of dopamine in the system. And I could feel that difference between that chemistry, the long-term chemistry, and the short-term chemistry of like some more negative habits, like alcohol or smoking or whatever. Short form video, right? You can feel that instant tick of gratification, but that short-term gratification really drops off. And especially if you know anything about peaks and baseline, or like peaks and plateaus and baseline of dopamine, of how that works, you can see that like you're creating this upward trend, and then you're going to drop off every single time. Whereas if you do these harder activities, you get this hard-earned dopamine surges. It's a much more sustained release. It's a longer-term way of getting things done internally, right? And so, is there good dopamine versus bad dopamine? I don't think so. It's all dopamine. It's just a chemical release, right? But understanding the difference between, I guess it's less so good versus bad chemistry, and it's more so instant gratification versus hard, easy, long-term gratification, delayed gratification, right? And feeling that difference was really wild. And understanding that, like, wow, I actually just need to be pushing harder. I need to be working harder. I need to be doing more. So that kind of wraps that up. But it's just something to think about, that since dopamine rules everything in your life, if you can find a way to delay gratification and get a much more long distributed release of your internal happy chemistry, then it's just going to lead to more productivity, better outcomes, better outlook, better mindset, right? So that's kind of where I'll leave that. But it's just something to pay attention to. It's real easy to fall into these quick hits, scroll through, social media or TikTok or whatever you got, and just experience that dump of happiness, and then afterwards you're empty, right? You just get leaked out of. But so kind of pay attention to that, and maybe try and change it. I'm trying to change some behaviors so that it's not so back and forth. It's more of like I'm stable and I have a continuous frame, rather than I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm sad, right? So there's that. With that being said, we're at about 40 minutes here. I think I am going to tie in this little bonus before we get to the life hack segment. So the bonus, maybe I'll keep it short and sweet. We'll see how I feel. But it's basically on relationships. More platonic, like not so much on the emotional relationships, but I think it applies either way. So it's just don't force relationships. They happen, they come and they go when they're supposed to, right? When it's meant to happen, when things are really clicking in place. And I say this because, I moved away from the friends. I've had the same, or at least like the same outer circles and inner circles of friends for a long time. People come and they go, right? But the main structure has been the same basically since I was in third grade, and some even past that. So I've always had this rock solid support system, and then I moved away and I left all that behind. And over 1,000 miles away, so the it's not really there for you anymore, and the benefit of day-to-day interactions is no longer there. And so when I came here, I was hungry for homies, right? Like for friends that I could just banter with, at least, a little bit. That playful interaction, the little bullying and the support and the hey, you win, I win deal on a local level. And so I found myself searching for that in people rather than just letting it happen. And this kind of ties into creating happiness within yourself and not depending on others, right? It's internal reward versus extrinsic reward, or intrinsic versus extrinsic. But when I started working the server job, I got a buddy there, and he's into a lot of the stuff that I'm into, but he's a little younger than me. And I found myself immediately like trying to make the relationship my new best friend, not as if we're going to be long-term friends immediately, but trying to be like this is my boy here now, like this is my homie. And I noticed that there was this friction where my reality was not meeting my expectations, where we just didn't form that bond, right? And so I was trying, not like I was pushing it super hard, but I could feel this desire in my mind for this person to be like it, like I have my life partner basically, but then, I need friends. I mean, I don't need friends, but I much prefer, I'm a social creature, as we all are, and I much prefer to have a close subset of friends that I can trust and rely on. And I found myself really pushing that relationship down that path when I don't think it was ready, and it caused a lot of friction, and it kind of, like, I'm always looking to see like what they're not doing to fulfill that requirement, when in reality, just let it happen. People, I didn't get the friends in my life, the people in my life that are so supportive because I was pushing so hard. I got it because it just happened that way, and who they were melded well with who I am, and we both had the same ideas of where we want to go and grow and become, and so those just kind of meet and blossom into a friendship, right? And you can't force that. You can't push that square peg into the round hole. It just doesn't work. You got to wait until you find the block that fits, and just let that happen and be comfortable by yourself for the time being until you find these people. Because the more you push, the more you're going to end up in relationships that are not exactly what you want, and you're going to be disappointed, and you're going to be bitter and resentful eventually down the line. When just relax and let the chips fall where they may, and just let things become what they are meant to become, rather than forcing them to be what you want them to be, right? So that's just a little tidbit, that was going to be in the life hack segment, but I figured I could move it up into a mainstream topic here. So just chill out, let people, friends come in and go, and as they will, and the people who are meant to stay will always stay, right? And people who are meant to leave are always going to leave. It's just how things work. Life progresses. People move on. It isn't a bad or good thing, but, some people you're just not meant to be lifelong friends with. Like, I just don't get along with you. I just don't agree with you. I don't really want to hang out with you. You don't want to hang out with me. That's it. That's okay. Nothing wrong there. Just different people, right? So that kind of concludes our topics segment, and we'll move on into the life hacks. I only have a couple here that I'll get into. Be a short little deal, but just a couple things that have helped me out, or that I think are beneficial or a good way of doing things, in my opinion. Take them if you like them. Just cut past you if you don't. It's up to you. But first one I have is gift giving. Say a birthday, Christmas, or just a charitable gift to a friend. Giving a gift of experience rather than material, right? So obviously society moves as you give people stuff, right? Christmas comes around, it's a bunch of presents, right? Birthdays come around, you give them gifts. So something that my partner and I have talked about, and I've had this conversation with other people in the past as well, is, using the gift giving time, because it isn't always, you can always give stuff, right? But there isn't always a designated time, like a birthday or Christmas or something, where you are meant to be giving something, or at least like it's the time. It is the time. And moving to a system of giving an experience, creating a memory, like something that you can bond over, or they can enjoy themselves, or something like that, rather than a gift that just is in their home, right? Or something in their car, or some little thing. There's always a place for material. I'm not going to say there's not. It's great to buy someone that they weren't going to give for themselves, or was too expensive out of their budget, and you can just supply that for them. That's always nice, of course. But moving into, at least the majority of the time, giving a gift, buy them tickets to a big day spa, or a boat trip, or a cruise, or a vacation, or, an event, or like this previous birthday that just passed by, I was gonna, I reserved a parasailing trip instead of giving a jewelry box or a new necklace or something, right? It's giving an experience of something that you would this person was never going to go parasailing on their own, but if I supply this and say, hey, I'll go with you, we can do this together, now it's a bonding experience. It's something that we can go do and have fun, something that neither of us would have done in the past, right? Plus you get to maybe squeak out a little bit of rewards there, instead of, you just give something to someone and then you never see it again, right? So it brings you closer together, rather than, in my opinion, rather than just giving them stuff. Not always the most appropriate, but I think it can be at least a good transition. Even if you start splitting it 50-50, that's still 50%, well, still more experiences than you would have gotten or given or experienced yourself if you were just giving stuff every time, right? And then the second thing I have is, man, honestly, this one could probably have been in a topics segment, but just allowing your mind to be free and not holding yourself so accountable to one thing. Like I've been doing a lot of research in neurochemistry and behavior and dating dynamics and relationship, dynamics and all this stuff. And so I've been existing in that space for probably months and months now, where I'm just learning about that all the time. And I found myself just like, I'm not eager to pursue that. I'm feeling, kind of lost. I don't really feel like doing anything because if I don't want to watch these things, I don't want to study these topics, what else am I going to do, right? And so I last couple of days, or really last week or two, I've been allowing my mind to just drift and, just finding things that I'm interested in and learning about that rather than like, you got to learn about dopamine, you got to learn about cortisol, you got to learn about your hormone production, you got to learn about like sauna benefits and health and fitness. Just pumping the brakes a little bit, dialing back and saying like, what do I want to learn about right now? And now, all of a sudden, it's been a week and I've been reading about real estate and the housing market and tenant-proofing rentals and things that I'm going to need down the line, but I wasn't organizing my thoughts in that way before. And I let my mind flow to topics that it's interested in, and I started finding out more about that. And it's been great. I feel much more free. I feel more energized to learn and ready to accept information because I'm not stuffing myself into a sock that I wasn't made to wear, right? I mean, I still find a lot of value in neurochemistry and things like that, and I will undoubtedly continue to draw from that wealth of knowledge, but it doesn't have to be all the time, right? If I'm, say next week I start getting burnt out on housing and real estate, and I don't really need to know all that stuff today, move on, and you never know. Maybe I'll be learning about woodworking or how to soup up my car, or, right, how to electrically wire back there. It could be different projects, how to aquaponically grow, or how to create a hydroponic system, and how to harvest vegetables inside of a small space. Who knows, right? And doing so, this goes back to diversification of knowledge. Take that, and I keep learning about new stuff. I'm still learning, right? Am I learning about the same thing all the time? Absolutely not. But at least I'm learning something. I'm acquiring new information that can help me in any subset of life. And you never know when that's going to come to fruition and come into play. And then also, just to boil it down to a social aspect, how much stuff do I have to talk about now, right? Even if I just know a little bit about vasopressin and how males bond based on, a common goal and achieving that goal. Next time I'm with some homies and they're talking about like, man, like, why am I good friends with it? Now I have something to talk about. Next time I'm talking to someone who's like, man, I'm trying to, get into the housing market, I can say, oh man, I was just hearing about this thing. It's like the premise of a coffee table book, but not on the coffee table. And I'm still learning about things that I'm interested in rather than like, oh, the inventor of gnomes was born at this time and he created this many illustrations. What do I care about gnomes, right? Sure, that's beneficial if I'm talking to a gnome enthusiast suddenly, but now I have all this stuff that I'm passionate about and I can talk about and get more information on. So that's number 2 there. So that kind of wraps it up, So we'll just kind of skip back through this stuff real quick and then I'll leave you guys here. So we talked about dreaming bigger, scale your dreams, get some big things moving, and then even if I'm not even going to say it. No, I was going to talk about the whole shoot for the moon and land on the stars BS, but a little cliche for me. But dream big. Don't be afraid to dream big. Give yourself permission to think a little bit bigger. And then we have, after you create your dream, build a blueprint to get there. Put out little chalk pieces every single step of the way. Build yourself a breadcrumb trail to get to where you're going in a way that makes sense to you, right? You don't really have to present it to anyone else. You can, but do it in a way that is logical for you and inspires you and trains you towards where you're going. And then we have the diversification of knowledge, which is learning about different things and using that to your advantage. Become a jack of all trades instead of a master of one. And Now you have all of these different resources to pool and create. Who knows? Maybe that gardening tip that you learned 2 years ago is going to come into play. Like, wow, holy hell, this gardening tip that I learned off of YouTube, some short video, is actually a perfect analogy for how I can deal with this, growing management issue in my company. You never know. You never ever know, right? And then we had good dopamine versus bad dopamine, or really it was short-term gratification versus long-term gratification. And then life hacks, give them an experience. Buy them a cool day trip down to some town they've never been to. It's often not much more expensive to creatively find a way to create an experience than it would be to just buy them a couple gifts. Even maybe if you even plan. You make a list of stuff that you could get someone, and then you pick a couple of those things, you find out the cost, and then take that cost and instead find, now you have a budget for something that you can give someone that's a meaningful memory, right? And then we have allowing your mind to flow towards things you're actually interested in and not confining yourself to the prison of what you're currently doing and what you believe you should be doing, right? So with that, we got through quite a bit today. We even got through the bonus and this life hack segment. Let me know what you guys think about the formatting, going through main topics and then getting to life hacks. I kind of like it so far. At least it'll help me be conscious about what I'm doing day to day and how I can use those tips to actually further my goals. And with that being said, I'll leave you guys. Thank you for watching. As always, appreciate you. Tune in next time. Go back through, watch a couple old videos, see what you think. Leave comments on there. Leave comments on this one. Interact. Love to see any feedback there. So thank you guys. With that, Nick out.